Even thinking about getting on at all would make me feel anxious. Even thinking about getting on at all would make me feel fearful, because I would remember those things that happened the last time and how much we went through and how hard it was.
Hey guys. Hello guys, welcome to you all who are new, and we want to say welcome to you all who have been watching us. Thank you for continuously tuning in and just showing us some support. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and continue to follow us, family.
Yes, you're not going to want to miss anything, okay? Okay, so today we're going to be talking about our social media journeys, and even just some wounds that we've been through, how God helped us to heal, and what we're doing now with social media. It's been such an interesting journey for us, and we've definitely been through a lot together with it. And so we're gonna come on and talk about it today and offer some help and some encouragement if you're going through similar things like we went through, some things that God gave us in that season, and is still giving us in this season to really help us move forward in our healing in those areas. Okay, so we're gonna jump into story time. All right, so we're gonna begin this story where we were with social media when we both met each other, just to kind of speed the story up. So when we met each other and we began to date, we both were, at that time we both had like Instagram accounts. I didn't personally have a Twitter, so I just had an Instagram. I had a YouTube. I had done a YouTube called Fit and Faith, where I documented my bodybuilding journey there, and then I kind of started doing some other videos in off season just about faith and fitness and things like that, and I kind of segued that into my Instagram as well. And also I created an Instagram page. Remember my Instagram page, Fit and Faith Instagram page? So that's kind of where I was posting things, and I think internally I had grown more comfortable with my voice online, really feeling like God was giving me encouraging messages for other people, not just with fitness, but just in trusting God alone. And I'd grown to be very transparent as well in those spaces. So the season before that, I was going through a breakup, and I started kind of dipping into like I'm gonna stunt on the gram type of mindset. So when we met, I was kind of trying to come out of that a bit. I kind of gotten sunken in that place for a bit. And so when we met, I was coming out of that, transitioning into a more transparent place. Still wanting to post and share these things, but wanting to be a little more vulnerable of, the heart behind why I was posting and what I was going through at the time and things like that.
For me, I was just probably in a season in the space of just trying to find out how I wanted to use social media. I had a Twitter, but I wasn't using Twitter much. I was heavy on Instagram at the time, but that was about it. Just trying to figure out my walk with God. So I was just trying to use Instagram to do godly things and promote godly things, but in the same sense, I was trying to also figure out, who I wanted to be and how I wanted to use IG and social media from previous seasons of, just not knowing who I was and what I wanted to do. So, I just was trying to figure that stuff out, honestly.
All right, so that's where we were. Then we meet, we get together, and maybe a month or so down the line, or 3 weeks or 4, I can't remember. We eventually started, posted ourselves together on Instagram in our stories, and that was the beginning of a very interesting season. It really caught me off guard because I hadn't really encountered like resistance on social media.
So I think for me, I was finding my identity in like things that I posted, or people just, liking and commenting, or DMing me. So all those different things would just, have an effect on me, which then had an effect on her. And just the beginning stages of where we was trying to, get things right and figure out, what we wanted to do, what direction we wanted to go in, and if we liked each other. It was just, I think, a lot of, us both trying to learn how to navigate social media and not through the lens and the eyes of the world, but, just be in the same, space with one another and doing the same thing and being on the same page. So, social media it started to get real weird, it started to get like complicated, and it was like, it's probably not healthy.
Yeah, it was bad. And I think also because before we met each other, we were used to talking to people on social media platforms. So you had people who are used to being talked to on social media platforms. And so some of that had to be, that had to be released in the dating season. And so it was very, very hard even to undo some of those rhythms. And so it began to build some wounds in me. And I think the biggest one built was like an insecurity of like, even though we're dating, and I know what God has said about relationship, it caused me to come into question with like, do I need to now compete against all these women on social media, for a beauty standard for him, or to be good enough, or even Christian women. I mean, it wasn't just like women in the world who are posting inappropriate things, but even Christians, like, am I godly enough? It just, all these thoughts that I've never had started to find their way into my mind. And some days I can say, I combated it pretty well with the word, and some days I really didn't. It was hard. It was hard for me during that time. It was tough. And I remember we would talk about it. I would express it, but it also was oftentimes the source of a lot of arguments, because then now he feels offended and attacked. Like, well, how did you feel when I would bring stuff like that up?
Yeah, I mean, I think those type of things, especially in those seasons where you're trying to let somebody else in your space, and you're trying to transition from, doing your own thing, it kind of gets hard, but that's kind of where you learn in those seasons how to, grow with somebody else and allow somebody else to help you see blind spots in your life and see areas where you might need to grow. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. It was areas that I wasn't, particularly able to see, because I had so many girls that I was already friends with, and people that I had already grew to be cool with. So, my people who I thought, were close friends, or people who followed me on IG, when I had found my identity in, really started to shape who I was. So when I, met her and we started to, again, seriously start talking, it was like, hey, you gotta understand, you gotta let these things go, because it has an effect on her as well as having an effect on me, without even realizing. There was, friendships, situationships and things like that, where it was like, hey, maybe I was playing a God in somebody's life, or, just holding on to things that was attachment, even if it wasn't like sexual or anything, but it was like an emotional attachment, to make me feel good that I'm helping this person, or this person helping me, and it was like, that's not healthy though. So, it was hard, basically is what I'm trying to say, to receive those type of things, but I think it was healthy, for me to be able to see like, hey, those are blind spots where, like she was speaking about, wounds from the past that I've tried to fill with voids of different things and different people, which wasn't healthy.
But, and I'll say, and it wasn't, just him and your stuff. Like, I feel like I in that season, my eyes, from seeing how you were moving and the things I was talking about, my eyes were open a lot to like my seeking for like people pleasing and on social media. And I think even those captions being so long, a lot of times was me trying to explain myself to others, or feel like I had to like validate why I was sharing something, like things like that, the trying to explain away certain things that didn't need explaining, and so for him it looked that way, but for me that's kind of how it looked, and that's kind of what was revealed in our dating season as well. So all this stuff started to swirl around. We would argue about it and all this stuff, and it just got to a point where it wasn't a safe space or a healthy space for either of us, and we knew that the growth that God wanted to do in both of us wasn't going to be able to be done on that platform. Yeah. So
during that time, we had to do a little reflecting. I know for me, I had to step away from social media. Of course, Instagram being the biggest one. I had to just let it go entirely for over a year, I think it was, and I chose to let it go for it, and I let it go, and it was hard, at the beginning. It was real hard for me because, I don't know, I guess because I truly found my identity in social media throughout the years of high school, the end of high school, I think through college, I was like heavy on Instagram and even Snapchat, but I was finding my identity in those things, and just we have to take some time to reflect. And I got off first, which I think was big for us, as me trying to be the leader, you know, and us dating, it was like, hey, you know, I knew that was something that I needed to do, which I think then led to you.
Yeah, eventually I was kind of like dwindling off, because let's be real. I mean, if my at the time boyfriend wasn't on there, who am I posing for? So I'm like, if you can't see my posts, the part of the motivation of me being on there and being cute is completely gone. So yeah, I mean, after a while he got off, which I really honored that, because I knew how much he really loved being on social media platforms and stuff like that. So I slowly kind of like naturally got off, because you weren't on, and I wanted to be where you were. I mean, we were dating, so it was like, well, I mean, I'll get on the chat with my friends if we're not in the group chat already, and then that'd be kind of about it. So yeah, slowly but surely, I kind of like faded out a little bit, kind of will come back here, fade out a little bit, and eventually kind of just wasn't. I never did deactivate mine as well. I didn't do that with my personal account. It's actually still up right now, but I wasn't really on it. And so during that time, I mean, this went on and on. Literally, we got engaged, we weren't on social media. We got married, we weren't on social media. Like, we weren't on for a very, very long time. But in that time, God began to prune a lot of things out of us. It was hard in the beginning, but once it got easy, then it became to be great. It was like, oh wow, this is refreshing. And then we stepped into that season of like, wow, without all of that, there's so much more to life. There's so much clarity. There's so much peace here. There's so much we could hear God's voice. I mean, that kind of stuff started to happen, like a purge. Like after, you know, we really were obedient, you know, God began to really deal with us and we could experience him more intimately. And that was beautiful. Yeah. Like that skyrocketed our relationship and our intimacy with God and with one another to a whole new level, just having that thing not looming over our head. And we still would do little things like record YouTube videos here and there, but we weren't on Instagram or anything like that. And even with the YouTube, we get on there and we post it, but that would be the extent of any social media interaction we really had for over a year, maybe even 2 years. So yeah, that was a needed time. It was refreshing. And what for me, I would say it started to take a turn when I began to think about returning to social media. Because at first I was like, oh, it's great. Then I began to have those thoughts about social media and start to feel anxious. So it was like the flip happened. Like even thinking about getting on at all would make me feel anxious. Even thinking about getting on at all would make me feel fearful, because I would remember those things that happened the last time and how much we went through and how hard it was. And God then had to deal with me in that season of healing those wounds. And we began to talk about this stuff a little more deep in context in that time, and sharing some things and releasing it, forgiving one another and stuff like that had to happen. To realize like, hey, this is not a big, bad, scary place. Like, you know, if God is calling you to a place, he's gonna be with you. And I mean, at that time I didn't feel called to it, but I just noticed that there shouldn't be any anxiety tied to anything. And I definitely was experiencing anxiety. Like my friends would send me something on Instagram, like maybe like someone's business page for hair or something. And I literally wouldn't even go on to open it, just because I'd have to go onto Instagram. Like it was very bad. So when I noticed that, I began to pray, and I prayed with my friends about it in the morning time. And slowly God began to heal and to mend and just open my heart to, hey, you know, if and when I call you to that space again, I'm with you. And it's not going to be the same thing. You know, you're not the same person you were when you left. And so it's not going to be the same experience, which leads us to where we are now with social media.
Yeah. Yes, where we are now. Now, you know, we've opened up the space to allow God to really lead us and be our, you know, guide to how he wants us to use social media. So I think we started back, you know, with Instagram, of course, making the joint page.
This was in January?
Yeah, in January.
No, earlier than that. No, this was we made that page in August or September. Sorry.
We made the page at some point. We just knew God was, you know, telling us to use it, the platform to reach people, you know, to just help people know who he is through our marriage, through our union, because it's a ministry for us. So we was like, hey, you know, God, we want to do it your way. You know, we don't want to do it the way we used to. You know, we don't want it to be unhealthy. We don't want to feel anxious. And, you know, we'll be lying to say, hey, you know, those moments don't come where we do feel those type of ways. You know, it's like, hey, you know, should we post this? Should we not? You know, I know for myself, you know, honestly speaking, there's a lot of times where I'm thinking like, hey, you know, if I post this, you know, we post this, like who's going to be from the past looking at us this type of way or thinking these type of things. But I just know that's all the enemy.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of times the enemy, but there's probably most of the times the people who need to, you know, see, you know, marriage in a good light and guide through what, you know, he's doing through our lives. So I think for us, we was able to now, you know, do the healthy way of things, even like YouTube, because she had a YouTube beforehand, her Fit and Faith page, you know, where she started to walk, you know, with the Lord and use her page for the right things, you know. But like she was saying, she had to take a season where it was like, you know, let me step back. But now us having our joint YouTube, our joint IG, we're able to like really, hey, walk into the calling and use the gifts that we have, which is speaking and, you know, being our fun selves, like, you know, you encouraging people and, you know, just letting people see that, hey, our faith is, you know, in God, and this is who we live for, and this is what makes us happy, and this is who we are. You know, we ain't got to be what IG made us to be based off the people that used to follow us, you know. Like, we ain't got to be anxious and afraid of like, oh yeah, somebody's going to judge me off who I used to be, or, you know, I got to see an ex or a person this and that. It's like, no, it ain't got to be that. It's like, hey, you get to freely be yourself. You know, you took the time you needed to step away, you know, and God is in the midst of it. You know, he has you protected and covered. And that's what we've been experiencing. Yeah, it's been fruitful. It's been really fruitful just to be able to do it together, I think.
It's the togetherness, and it's so beautiful. Like, even to be on here together is a testimony of God's faithfulness, you know. Thinking about how much we've been through that's been hard. And so, because I remember when God began to call us back and give us vision for, you know, coming back on social media together. First, it started with YouTube of like, hey, I really do want you guys to do that and be intentional. And for Instagram, like, we kept having like friends reach out and like, hey, we really want to miss you guys and would love to see you guys. And at first I'm like, you know, people can say a lot of stuff. Like, you know, I'm not listening to people like this.
People was even inviting us to like start to be on their IG lives,
our friends and stuff,
conferences that they was having on social. And we would just see people like really interacting and like encouraging us, like, hey man, we need to see more of this, we need to see more of y'all, like, and it was like in the light of like, hey, you know, they just don't want to see our life. They can just see the fruit. They can see the fruit of like, man, God is really worked in their lives. Like, I know Dexter from back in the day. I know Imani from back in the day. Now look at those two people, you know, flourishing and glorifying God with their lives now. Like, we've seen a lot of that.
That's what I mean. And a lot that kept coming up. So at first I was dismissing it, like, people just want to see somebody. But then I realized, like, no, this really is God. So we took it to God in prayer, and he continued to confirm and refine the vision until we knew he was calling us to be on this space together. And even that, I honestly had anxiety about. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what are people gonna think that I'm coming back with my husband? Like, they think I can't do nothing by myself. Like, you know, just all these things that come up. Like, who else is doing this? Is this even what people do? Like, you know, but when God is calling you to do something, you just have to be obedient to what God is calling you to do. And like he's calling you into in this season. We just want to encourage anyone who has experienced some anxiety on social media, whether it's fear of getting on, fear of getting off, or if it's fear of a person or people's opinions of yourself, or the feedback you may or may not get, or any of those things. We just want to encourage you that if you really bring those things to God in prayer, he will instruct you and lead you and guide you on how to move in a way that is best for you in the season that you're in right now. Because right now our season, like for example, our season is to be on and engaging and enjoying, but that wasn't always a season. There was a season where we had to sit down and take time off indefinitely. We didn't even have like we didn't even plan really to get back on. I was fine. I was really fine being off. It was cool, you know. So it's just where you are in that season. We have a couple of takeaways for you guys from this message, just to apply to your life. Some things you can take away, and some verses if you feel like any of this has resonated with you at all. Okay, so here are a couple of our takeaways. We're gonna look at our notes because we wrote them down. So our first biggest takeaway for you guys is to seek God for where you really are with social media. You know, if you're in a healthy place with social media, if you've been wounded in a place, just to ask God, Lord, can you show me where I really am? You know, and it doesn't mean that he's going to answer in any particular way, good or bad or whatever, but just ask, you know, ask if you really are having a hard time being honest with yourself. Just seek him, and he'll be able to illuminate to you where you really are. Our second big takeaway is not being afraid to create healthy boundaries for yourself or deleting it completely. So we already kind of talked about this, but not being afraid to put in, even on your phone, you could put like the timer on your apps or your downtime, or having certain days when you only get on. And not also being afraid to remove it completely. I mean, and don't even think of the, when I'm gonna get back on, like, to do that for us, it brought, like he said, it was hard at first, but then it ended up bringing so much peace. So even if it starts hard, don't think it's gonna stay there. If that's what you need, know that it will start to meet a need by you being obedient to that. And your peace will be in that space. And so we encourage you in that as well. The third biggest takeaway that we have is that God will heal all of your wounds and any distorted views that you have of yourself from anything on social media. He is our healer. So we encourage you to open up your Bible and read about how God is a healer, how he mends the brokenhearted. He really does heal wounds, and in being real about those wounds. Somebody may have said something in your comments that was really hurtful, or maybe an old friend did post something about you that really hit to your core. You know, that's okay to be honest with God with those things. It's good to be honest with God with those things and allow him to come in and heal. So just having the faith to know that God is going to heal if you have experienced those things. And if your view of yourself has been distorted just through the lens of social media or how others see you, that God can redeem your identity as well, your view of yourself. He can redeem those things just by bringing it to him and asking him for his help. And as he gives you steps of healing and a process of healing, know and trust that he'll be with you as you walk through that.
Alrighty, and another takeaway is just God is able to teach us how to operate in wholeness while enjoying social media. So that was for us where we was able to come back to social media now and just see, hey, you know, God has gifted each and every one of us because he's uniquely made us for a special reason. So I know, you know, social media is big in the world we live in now, and that's a way to use it as a ministry to reach people. You know, and that's where you really, when you take that time away, like she said, you know, and you let God, you know, prune you and mold you into who you're supposed to be and who your identity is, you start to realize those gifts and things that are in you. And then now when you're able to come back to social media, you're able to operate in that wholeness, you know, operate fully in those gifts that God has given you to be able to give to the world, to give to people so that they can experience the God that, you know, we love, that you love, you know, and you can really fully live out and just enjoy, you know, the fruit of, you know, what God's called you to be. So we have a couple anchor verses. One for sure was Matthew 6:22. This is out of the ESV version. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. So that just was speaking about, you know, basically, hey, making sure that you're focusing on the right things. You know, we know also the verse that we have in here that is Mark 9:47, the ESV version. And if your eye causes you to sin, tear it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than two eyes to be thrown into hell. You know, so of course, you know, it's not telling you in your carnal, you know, vision to tear your eye out and throw it away. But it is telling you that, hey, if there's anything that's causing you, you know, to turn away from God or not glorify God with your life, you know, hey, turn away from that, you know, get rid of that, create the boundaries, or just let that stuff go out of your life so you can be filled with God. You know, you can be filled with the Holy Spirit. You can be filled with the love and peace and joy and happiness and kindness, faithfulness, all those things that you need to help you operate in your wholeness and your fullness of what God called you to be. So, and then I'm gonna just leave you with, you know, your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. But when it is bad, your body is full of darkness. And that is Luke 11:34 ESV version. So yeah, man, we really hope, you know, family, that y'all enjoyed this video and that it was encouraging for you all. We just wanted to come, you know, and briefly, you know, share what God has been doing in our life, you know, over the last couple of years. And, you know, he put it on our heart to just share, you know, this testimony with you all, and, you know, just, you know, allow y'all continue to be a part of our life of, you know, what he's dealing with us, you know, what we've walked through, because we know, you know, hey, we're a family and we're a body together, you know. So we love you all.
Love you guys so much. If you haven't yet, subscribe, click the like button if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like this. Also comment below if you would like to pray. I mean, we're gonna pray over it. Everyone who watches this, but if you have anything or any other things that have helped you, maybe you've been on a similar journey, please feel free to comment below and add to that. We'll also put these verses down in the description box. We ask that you seek the Lord and the Holy Spirit in prayer for revelation on these verses. Like Dex was saying, these verses really were about what you're putting in front of your face, what you're allowing into your eyes. what you view and focus on, and the freedom that there is in the boundaries and detaching sometimes. So so we just want to encourage you guys with that. So yeah, we hope to see you guys in our next video. We have some really fun content coming up, and if you're not already, also go ahead over to Instagram and connect with us on Instagram at With The Alexanders. I'll tag it right up here again. But we love you guys so much. We pray you have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Peace.